In today's video, I'm going to discuss power of sale, and I'm going to break down the process and the timeline a lender must take in order to sell a home under power of sale. But stay tuned until the end because I'm going to share some bonus information that will give you things that you're going to want to know about a home being sold under power of sale, whether you're a buyer or a seller. So what's a power of sale? It's really a process where a borrower has failed to meet their mortgage obligation and the lender can recover their losses in terms of the mortgage principal amount, the interest, and then the related expenses that they would have to incur to get to the point of selling the property under power of sale. This is a legal proceeding and the lender must follow a really strict process in order to get an eviction from the borrower as well as the eventual sale of the property. I'm going to break down the 6-step process when going power of sale. But before I do, I'd love to get a comment from you and get your feedback on what your experience was if you've in fact been through the power of sale process, whether it be as a buyer or a seller. Let's break down the timeline in a power of sale. And the first step is going to be a default. Most of the time, the default is going to occur when a borrower misses a payment or two. But there are a couple of other ways to be in default. Those are not paying real estate taxes, using the property illegally, or even doing damage to the property on purpose. Step 2 is going to be the lender delivering a notice of sale. And this occurs after the default, 15 days after the default has occurred. The lender is then in a position to issue this notification to let you know of their intentions. The notice of sale is to be delivered by registered mail to all parties that have an interest in the home. And that could be other borrowers, whether it be a spouse or family member, guarantors, and then any of the other subsequent people with interest in the property. Could be other mortgages, could be liens against the home, could be a construction lien as an example, or any other type of creditor where you've used the home as collateral that has an outstanding debt will be notified by registered mail from the primary lender. Once the notice of sale has been mailed out to the lender, or to the borrower, by the lender, they'll have to wait 35 days for an individual or up to 40 days for a married couple before any further action can be taken. And really that's going to be the time where any borrower, when you find yourself in this sort of position, is your best course of action at first is to seek legal advice, to really see what you can or what you can't do. I'm not a legal expert. I'm a local real estate agent here in Toronto, and I have run into these situations periodically through my career. So I do have experience in different situations before going power of sale. And oftentimes that's when a homeowner will, if they can't afford to keep the home, they want to control the situation and they want to control the outcome. So it's usually a time where they will decide to go forward and sell the property on their own. But this is really a critical time for you, if you are a homeowner facing this type of situation, is to definitely seek legal advice. This is going to really lead to step 3, what's known as the redemption period. This is the time where the lender has given the notification that the borrower is in default. While there's nothing that the lender can do at this time, this is now in the borrower's best interest for which direction they want to go in. They may have to make whatever outstanding debt whole, so get caught up on their mortgage payments if that's the case, or they've got to come up with some kind of repayment plan with the lender that'll satisfy the lender. If the borrower doesn't pay what's outstanding and owed to the lender during this redemption period time, if things just get left the way they were, then that will put the lender in a position to make a statement of claim. And this is really the next step in what will be the legal proceedings in order to be able to take possession of the home to sell it under power of sale. This really is going to be the last chance for any property owner at that time to, again, control the situation, sell the property as quickly for as much money as possible so that you're not going to lose any more equity that you may have already built up in the property. And then you can go and pay the mortgage out whole. You can then, maybe find other living options, whether you go and rent a property, or maybe you buy, if there's equity left over, maybe you're able to buy a property that's less expensive with a reduced mortgage, or maybe even no mortgage at all, depending on the kind of equity you have. Step 4 is going to be where the lender applies to take possession of the property. After the statement of claim was issued to the borrower, and if the borrower does not make any kind of statement of defense, then the lender can just sign forward the default judgment. The only, not the only, but a situation where the borrower might file a statement of defense is if the lender has come after them in haste. So that might be a situation where, they didn't follow the proper protocol and timeline for issuing notices for default, or, not waiting the whole redemption period and issuing the registered letters, which I discussed earlier. These are cases where someone may defend themselves, but if there really is nothing to defend, then they may just forego it, and then it kind of becomes the next step in the process. After signing a default judgment, a lender must bring a court motion in order to gain a writ of possession, which is another legal step in the process where it's going to allow the lender to get an order to arrange for a sheriff to go through the eviction process. The sheriff is going to give a date for when the eviction's to take place, and then it'll be incumbent on the homeowner to move prior to that date. But by that date, the sheriff will be in a situation where they are going to be able to take possession of the home physically. This is a situation that I do have experience in, whereby I had a client a number of years ago come to me. He had received all of these letters, really just buried his head in the sand, and we had determined that we have to sell this house. But he was only days away from the sheriff coming to the property because they hadn't moved, and they were physically going to be removed from the house. And it was a single dad with his 2 boys, and it was a really tough situation. But fortunately, we were able to speak to the lawyer representing the lender, because they were going to have to go through and remove everything from the property, get it cleaned up, and then get it sold. And I just offered with my service that I would take care of all of it. I would have a firm sale for them, but I needed about an extra week. And they granted us that time. We did get the home sold within the week. It worked out really well that we did get multiple offers. We got a lot more money than the homeowner would have expected. It did relieve a lot of stress, because he did net money where he was able to pay off the mortgage and all of his debts, property taxes, and he still had a nest egg of money. He was able to go move elsewhere with his 2 young boys at the time, and they were able to restart and start off fresh. And it really created a great opportunity for them, where they sort of thought that there was no other opportunity or alternative for them. They didn't think anybody would want the house because it wasn't in good repair. So if you are in that kind of situation, just know that everything will sell at a given price. So don't ever think you can't sell the house. As hard as it is, make sure you reach out and talk to someone. Don't bury your head in the sand. You're going to have to execute on these situations as they arise. But oftentimes waiting for the lender to take possession is going to make it worse on you financially, because the way a lot of these power of sales are structured and the related costs, there's almost no equity left in the home following the sale. So if you want a chance at saving some of your equity moving forward and having some money, then selling your home yourself before it gets to this situation it might be in your best interest. But I'll get into some of the next steps further on, where I'll get into some of those insights and share a little bit more information. Step 5 in the timeline for going power of sale is going to be when the lender takes possession of the property and goes forward with the sale of the home. And during this, in order for them to proceed, they're going to have to hire a licensed realtor who's going to list the home on the MLS system. The property has to be sold for full market value, and it's going to be sold in an as-is condition. Step 6 in the process when dealing in power of sale is going to be the property being sold and how the proceeds are going to be handled. And really the first expenses are going to be in the direct relation to the sale of the property. So that's going to be your real estate fees from the realtors. It's going to be real estate lawyers that handled and closed the transaction, and then any other expenses with regard to the marketing of the property, if any. And sometimes that might be clearing the house if there was things left behind, maybe having it cleaned, but often it's not like lenders are going to do all kinds of improvement to the house in most situations. Not all, but in most situations, because they're selling the house as is, that's generally going to be how they market it or how they choose to market it. The second wave is going to be, the mortgage amount, the principal, the interest, any penalties that were in arrears, that's going to be paid to the lender and they're made whole. Following that, if you have any other debts, whether it be second mortgages, whether it be liens against the property or consumer debt, credit cards, etc., then those vendors are going to be paid and made whole. Following that, if there's any proceeds that remain, that's going to be the equity that remains in the home, and that's going to then go back to the homeowner. And that goes back to my earlier discussion about when you sell, some people will choose to sell their house themselves so they control the situation before going power of sale, because ultimately the home's going to be sold if you aren't able to make the payments up and make your debts whole with the lender. But what you'll find is the amount of legal fees and costs in order to do a power of sale are so much more than just you as a homeowner selling the home through a realtor, is that money ultimately comes out of your proceeds. So you're going to pay extra. So in some cases, it's better to just get ahead of it and sell it yourself, because oftentimes, and I've seen the breakdown, when you look at all of the different expenses and fees in order to get the power of sale to happen, the costs are so great that it eats most of the equity in the home. As promised, I want to share with you some extra information regarding power of sale in a practical sense. I've been part of many power of sale transactions, and a question I often get is consumers will ask or buyers will ask, can I get a good deal on a power of sale? Can I buy it below market value? And the short answer is no. For reasons that I've mentioned in the video, the lender has to still try and get full market value for the home regardless of condition. So there's a couple things that could be working against you. The house may need a lot of work. And if so, do you have the means and the wherewithal to do that work to bring the house up to a standard that's going to make it livable? The second part of that is when you're doing an offer on a power of sale, it's unlikely you're going to get to put all kinds of conditions in it in terms of financing, in terms of home inspections. Lenders are they're not going to let people tie up the homes. So what's going to happen is you're going to have to do any due diligence in advance of a sale, and there's no guarantee your offer is going to be accepted. So you're really going to have to be strategic in your thought process in terms of pursuing a power of sale home. And it's not that an opportunity doesn't exist, because they do, but you have to have the means and the wherewithal to take those kinds of projects on. But I know there's agents out there that promote lists of bank foreclosures, which is a totally different topic because they're not even the same as power of sale, and power of sales, like all of these lists of lenders. And it's just not true that these properties go on the open market and they have to be sold for full market value. So there's no secret power of sale lender lists out there. It's just a lead generating tool that agents are putting out in the marketplace. So I hope you found value in this video, and I'll see you on the next one.